Hello everyone, here's Natalia again. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to talk about the Warring Kingdoms today. This regional description, as we call them in German, regionale Beschreibung. I don't know what it's called in English, maybe a source book, maybe something different. However, this is exactly what it is. So basically it's a source book for the Dark Eye, and it describes one of the regions of this world. The world is Aventuria, as you might know, or then again you might not know this. Aventuria is a very densely written setting, so there are tons of books in German, as you can see over here, from the previous edition of the Dark Eye, which is the fourth. And what we're looking at here is pretty much the first one of these green babies for the new edition. So the idea is this time with this new edition is that we are full color and that the volumes themselves are kind of more attractive to the reader, which I can totally confirm as one who, has read some of these. I'm not gonna claim I've read all of them, and even those I've read, I haven't read them from cover to cover. We'll get to that later. So I can confirm that these publications are of a much better quality, and I really recommend them in general as a total, as a series, whenever they come out. If you're interested in the world of Aventuria, and if you're interested in a very very detailed and very rich settings, this is something for you, totally. If you're not interested in the details and you really are a friend of settings which are more like broad strokes and kind of like generic statements about the world, then you're probably just happy with the almanac. But then this stuff, it goes into real detail of this particular region, and it's not even a big one. So the Warring Kingdoms, and you see I'm holding it up on my tablet because I don't actually possess a printed edition. Yeah, I'm not a digital native, but still digital enough to not want to spend the money on the printed edition. Anyways, just saying, it's just as good, and also it's like half the price. So yeah, I prefer that. Anyways, I have it in German right here, but then again, there's no difference actually between the German and the English one, except for the translation. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry. I need to adjust to talking to the camera in English, and also to kind of remember not to babble. If you like the babbling, let me know, then I'll babble all you want. So basically, the Warring Kingdoms, what are they? They are a pretty small spot on the map of Aventuria, and the publishers have started with this particular region, not because it's so important, it's not, but it's kind of user-friendly, they say, in a way that it's easy to understand the setting, and it's kind of like presents you with this really classical medieval fantasy setting. It's rather low fantasy as well, so there's not a lot of adjustment that you need to do in your head, and there's not a lot to learn, I guess. This is what they tell me. I didn't start with this setting myself when I just got to know the Dark Eye. I started with a very, very, very special and unique setting, and I'm not gonna mention it, but maybe I'll talk about it at some other time. Maybe when the source book will be out for this, which might happen in 10 years, judging by the pace we are going. But anyway, remember about the babbling? I'm sorry about that. So anyways, it's not super important, it's not super big, but it is apparently user-friendly because it's very easy to understand. It's basically a early Middle Ages, or like the classic Middle Ages, maybe not the early ones, but kind of like the classic Middle Ages sort of setting, which is based on more like northern Germany, the Netherlands, and a little bit of Czech Republic. It wasn't a republic back then, but Yeah, that sort of thing, with like a very small portion of the population being on top and being very rich and very arrogant and like self-involved, and then a broad mass of like poor and uneducated population. This is like the basic structure. And this is similar in both of the kingdoms, Nostria and Andergast. I probably should have given them the names early in this video. Anyway, so Nostria is a slightly more advanced country. Andergast is considered to be more backwards, at least from my personal perception. And both of them, though, are pretty classic medieval stuff. There's also a large peasant population, and the towns are pretty small and not very developed. A lot of people are, like I said, uneducated, and there's a lot of forests as well, especially in Andergast, but also in Austria, and there are stories that you can tell here which revolve like around the mysteries of these stories, but then again the classical plots for this region would be the actual war between them. The warring kingdoms, you see, are not called that for no reason. They are called the warring kingdoms because they have been at war with each other for dozens of years, maybe centuries, and nobody knows even why, but somehow they hate each other for no particular reason, it seems. And there's like stereotypes and prejudice on both sides that kind of drive people to a very, this antagonistic relationship to the other party. And they constantly are at war. When they're not at war, they're planning a war, or maybe they're like small battles going on every now and again. There are even places where you don't know whether they belong to Nostria or Andergast at this particular moment, and the borders are shifting quite often. So that's the general idea. Now, what will you get out of this source book? It is structured kind of like the almanac. So if you have seen the almanac, or if you have it, you will know what to expect. There is a general description of, the geography and the people themselves, the culture. Then there is a chapter on the flora and fauna of the whole region. Then like the societal and religious peculiarities, maybe some professions, some stuff like that, which you might use when you create your character coming from this region, or when you create a game in this region. This is what you might want to use in order to give it like more local color. Basically, I wouldn't say that this book is a super engaging read if you want to read it from cover to cover, which is something that I never do with these things. It's rather something to skim through, maybe, to kind of get a general idea, and then once you get a particular question from the players, or like when you're preparing or you're creating your own character and you want to know, hey, how is the XYZ in the Warring Kingdoms or in Nostria and Andergast, and then you can kind of just find the necessary information in the book. And that's how I would use it, and that's how I would recommend to use it as well. Don't expect it to be super engaging in terms of like plot or anything. There's no adventures or like no plots included in the book either, which is really normal for the TDA source books. The most you will get is kind of like your own imagination, playing off of the ideas on the background stories, on the characters that you will encounter in the book, and then you maybe kind of bounce off that and kind of create your own adventures. But then there are also published published scenarios, published adventures, which you can just take as is and kind of just do that and use the source book as your additional information source for the Warring Kingdoms. I do want to mention especially that the books are very nice to kind of skim through and to get an idea of the region, and there are some really nice illustrations in there. I just want to mention this one, and it's not even a native illustration made for this book. It's coming from a computer game based on the universe of Aventuria, and it has been around for a couple of years, but then I just find it so beautiful, and there are a couple of those as well, which you know, can give you a general idea. And I wish there would be more of this, but I guess that the budget and the space is also limited for this thing. So yeah, I can understand why there's not so many of these things there, but then again, there are enough illustrations to give you like a good feel of the region. There's also, by the way, supplements to this book. Like there's a special supplement dedicated to the arsenal or the weapons used in this region. There's also a small book which is kind of like a novella sort of thing. It's not a full-blown novel, it's too short for that, but then there's like a, and then again it's too long for a short story, so it's something in the middle, and I believe it's called novella, correct me if I'm wrong. And then there's like the soundtrack as well, and there's some playing cards. I don't really have them, but if you are into that sort of thing and if you want to kind of have everything dedicated to this region, you can. Now, I don't want to give this book like a rating. I don't really have a rating system. I really like it, and I really look forward to all the like regional descriptional source books that the guys in Germany are doing, and I really look forward to seeing them and to learning more about the regions, because they're just beautiful publications, quite honestly, and I really like the world as well. So again, if you like the world, you are very likely to like the descriptions as well. And yes, they're not like super broad in terms of detail. On the contrary, they're very, very detailed, very, very rich and very deep, let's say. They dive really deep in the culture of the region and in the background of the region. So if you are into that sort of thing, I think you will like it. Yeah, so I'll finish this video on this. Hope it's helpful for you guys. And yeah, let me know what you think. What would you like to hear more about? I don't know, maybe you want to hear more about the German publications, about the past publications, about the future publications. I could theoretically talk about any of those things. Thank you for your attention, and see you later. Auf Wiedersehen!